How's it going? Making this video for my buddy Jordan. Is trying to learn how to make some homemade hard cider. I kind of confused him with my instructions, so I'm going to try to make it a little easier for him. I'm going to go through the basic things you need on the day you're actually going to brew. You need a decent sized kettle. I would say one that at least holds a gallon or two, just so you can do a bigger batch if you want, or if you want to do 1 gallon batches you can do that too, but at least have some headspace for an extra little bubbling. I add a little brown sugar to mine. I got a thermometer. You got to have sanitizer to clean all your equipment and your fermenter, and then you got I like to use the champagne yeast. It's able to go to a higher alcohol percentage, and then you have to have an airlock chamber, a bubble chamber. Basically lets the CO2 out and doesn't let any oxygen in. Or if you want to do 1 gallon batches, what you can do is you take out some of your cider out of here, so you have a little bit of space, so that when it starts to ferment it doesn't bubble over. And then basically you take your cap off, put a pinhole in your, like a latex balloon when it's deflated, and then when you put it over the cap hole there, and when it starts putting off CO2 gas, it's able to bleed that off, and you're able to not overflow, and then when it shrinks back down, when it's done fermenting, it doesn't allow the oxygen in that little pinhole. So it just kind of depends on what you're willing to invest. If you want to do 1 gallon batches, I've done this before. It actually works great. I didn't have any accidents. The balloon lasted fine and everything worked great. Now if you're wanting to do a 5 gallon batch, you can either buy an actual fermenter, like a plastic bucket fermenter, and these work great when you're doing 5 gallon batches. If you start doing larger batches, you're probably going to want something, you're going to have to go to a whole other system basically, but these work great. You don't have to do full 5 gallons either. You can do partial batches in here, but this one I actually made so I could make more than 1 brew at once. You can buy these spouts. This is actually meant for fermenters, but they kind of rotate here. Sorry, my camera work. They kind of rotate so you can turn it down, and you got it on and off like this. And basically it's got a screw-on side there, and then there's rubber gaskets on both sides there. What you also need is a little grommet, a little pin. So basically that's where your air chamber will go, and I think Home Depot sells those. You just got to find the right size to fit your bubble fermenter airlock here. And so this one's kind of tight, but basically it just goes right in there. With a little bit of pushing, you want a tight seal, but when you get it closed nice and tight, it's got to be able to have a locking, so the air does not come in through the lid. So you got to find the right kind of bucket. And I think this is actually just a 5 gallon bucket, so you got to be careful if you're doing a full 5 gallons because it doesn't have any head space. But I think normal ones are like 7 or something. And I have one of those. I'll see if I can find a picture, but it's just exactly the same thing, except it's just a little bit taller. Alright, so to reiterate, if you want the very simplest way to do this, if you just want to do 1 gallon batch and you want to make it real easy on yourself, all you got to do is maybe a couple inches of this, just maybe save it in like something that's not going to go bad, in jars or whatever, and sprinkle. These packets are good for about 5 gallons, so like, about a fifth, a quarter. Sprinkle it right in there, and kind of maybe divide it maybe on a little plate or something. Put it in there, and kind of shake it up just a little bit, and then put your balloon on there. In about a week, you'll have hard cider. Now, it won't be as high alcohol content as the way I'll show you next, and it'll probably be real dry, but that's how all cider is going to be. Cider is something that ferments to almost 100% alcohol potential, so if it's measured out as it's got the potential to be 5% alcohol, it will almost go all the way to 5%. It's just the type of sugar that's in it, I guess. but I'll show you a way to kick up the alcohol percentage, and then when we're all done, in another video, I'll show you how to kind of back sweeten it and get that real good apple cider flavor in there. So on brew day, like I said, all you need is your pot, some sugar, thermometer if you care. I mean, just you don't want to get too hot. You just, basically are just getting it warm to dissolve the sugar. But you gotta sanitize everything with one-step sanitizer, or I've got this. This is the stuff I use most of the time. It's 5-star Star San, and it's got a little measuring thing that you just kind of squeeze, and then it's really easy to use. And that's just instant sanitizer, basically, to clean all your stuff, all your equipment, everything you're just gonna come into contact with your brew. You want to get it nice and clean, because whatever bacteria or yeast that's already living in your house, you don't want that to contaminate your brew. Usually turns out bad. And then something to ferment, whether you're going to do a bucket or you're just going to do a 1-gallon batch. So right now I got the Star San. I mixed it according to the instructions in the back. I just used a little bit here. I got everything. I got my spoon in here. I have my thermometer in here. I have my airlock taken apart with all the pieces separate, so I can make sure I get it really well and sanitized. And I also just kind of got the entire side of the pot done. And then what I'll do next is I will pour what's left in there after I clean this, because it's kind of dirty from just sitting around. I will seal it up and shake it around with my finger over the hole, and with this valve closed. I'll shake it up, make sure it gets in contact with every surface in there, and then I will actually let some come out the drain, the spigot, and make sure that it's everything, because there's probably old sugars and stuff in there from the last brew I made. So that's what I'll do next, and I won't show that step. I'm done sanitizing. So even though there's some of these bubbles left in here, this sanitizer is meant for brewing, and it actually doesn't impart any bad flavors upon your brew when you're making it. So you see, basically what I'm saying is you can have some residue like that, and it's actually a good thing. Kind of continues to clean, but it will not make your brew taste poorly. And then I'm doing kind of the same thing here. There's some bubbles in there, and then there's probably little remnants inside my fermenter. So basically I'm just going to let this sit until it's time to open it up. I got it sealed so that just the cat doesn't get crap in there, or air particles or whatever. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start